The moment my father burst into the old barn, I knew my secret was out in the worst way possible. He saw me kissing Joseph under the soft glow of the lantern, and his face twisted with pure rage instantly. "You are no son of mine, any more you hear me," he shouted as his voice boomed across the wooden structure loudly. That single night at 16 years old changed the course of my entire life in ways I could never have predicted. He forced me to pack my bags right then and there while my mother watched helplessly from the porch steps. The rain poured down as I walked away from the only home I had ever known, feeling completely lost and alone. For the next 10 years, I struggled to survive in the big city of Chicago, working any job I could find. Joseph, my secret love from that summer, eventually joined me, and together we fought to build something meaningful. I studied hard at night school and developed an app that connected farmers with markets across the Midwest region. It took off beyond our wildest dreams, and soon I was running a successful tech company from our small apartment. Success brought me back to my hometown of Willow Creek, Kansas, where the whole town was buzzing with news of my return. I arrived with Joseph by my side, ready to face my past, and perhaps even reconcile with my family members. But as soon as my father spotted us walking together in the town square, his old anger flared up again fiercely. He marched over and demanded that I send Joseph away or never set foot in the family home ever again. My mother tried to calm him down, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The neighbors started whispering, and the local paper even ran a story about my triumphant return and personal life. Drama began to build as family dinners turned into arguments about tradition and what the town would think of us. I tried to explain that Joseph and I had built a life together based on love and mutual respect over the years. But my father remained stubborn, insisting that I was bringing shame to the family name once more. Uncle Samuel, who had always been the quiet observer in the family, watched these exchanges with a thoughtful expression on his face. He never said much, but I could tell he was processing everything in his own careful and deliberate way. The pressure mounted as the town festival approached, where I was set to be honored for my business contributions locally. I wondered if bringing Joseph would cause more problems, but hiding our love felt wrong after all this time. My heart ached remembering the boy I was when I left this town, broken and afraid of who I truly was. Joseph held my hand tightly, reminding me that we had come so far and no one could take that away from us. The days leading up to the festival were filled with mixed emotions as old friends reached out to welcome me back warmly. Yet the family tension lingered like a dark cloud, threatening to overshadow the success I had worked so hard to achieve. My mother pulled me aside one evening and confessed that she had missed me terribly all those years apart. She admitted that she had never agreed with my father's harsh decision, but had been too scared to speak up then. Still, she urged me to be careful because my father was not ready to accept the truth about my relationship yet. I felt a glimmer of hope, but knew the road ahead would not be easy for any of us involved in this situation. As the festival day arrived, the town square was decorated with banners celebrating local heroes like me for my achievements. Joseph and I dressed in our best clothes and walked hand in hand toward the stage where I was to give a speech. The crowd cheered loudly as we approached, but I could see my father's scowling face in the front row clearly. He stood up suddenly and pointed at us, shouting words that echoed through the microphone system for everyone to hear. The entire square fell silent for a moment as his accusations rang out about how I was destroying the family name again. Joseph squeezed my hand gently, giving me the strength to step forward and deliver my prepared speech with steady confidence. I spoke about innovation and community, but inside I was fighting the old fear that had haunted me since that barn night. After the event, my father cornered me near the parking lot, demanding once more that I choose between Joseph and the family. The argument grew heated, with voices rising until Uncle Samuel appeared from the crowd and placed a calm hand on my shoulder. He said nothing at first, but his presence alone seemed to diffuse some of the immediate anger in the air around us. That night back at our temporary rental house, Joseph and I talked late into the evening about what the future might hold here. We wondered if staying in Willow Creek was worth the constant battles, or if we should return to our life in Chicago. Yet something in me wanted to fight for acceptance because this town had shaped me and I still loved its rolling fields. My mother called the next morning with a shaky voice, saying she hoped we could all sit down for a proper family dinner soon. I agreed, hoping it might open a door, but deep down I prepared myself for more of the same rejection I had known before. The days that followed brought more whispers from townsfolk, some supportive of my success, and others echoing my father's views. Joseph remained my rock, listening patiently as I vented about the past hurts that kept resurfacing in unexpected moments. We took walks through the wheat fields where our young love had first bloomed, reminding each other of the good times too. Uncle Samuel stopped by one afternoon with a basket of fresh vegetables from his garden and a quiet smile on his face. He asked about my company and listened intently as I described the app that was now helping dozens of local farms thrive. His questions showed genuine interest, and for the first time in years I felt seen by someone in my family circle. The conversation turned personal when he mentioned how proud he was of the man I had become despite the hardships. I sensed there was more he wanted to say, but he held back, leaving me curious about what lay behind his thoughtful eyes. As the week progressed, the family pressure intensified, with my father spreading word that I was not welcome at the next gathering. My mother tried to mediate, but the divide felt wider than ever, and the town gossip mill spun faster each day. Joseph suggested we focus on the positive impact our return was having on the community projects I had funded. We attended a small ribbon cutting for a new youth center I had helped build, and the local kids cheered our names loudly. In that moment, surrounded by smiling faces, I felt a surge of pride that almost drowned out the family noise temporarily. Yet back home the phone rang with another angry call from my father insisting I end things with Joseph immediately. The build-up of emotions left me exhausted but determined not to let the past dictate my present happiness any longer. Joseph pulled me close that evening, whispering that no matter what happened we had each other, and that was enough. I nodded, knowing he was right, but still hoping for a breakthrough that could heal the old wounds once and for all. The next morning brought an unexpected invitation from my mother to join a small family barbecue at the old house. I hesitated, but Joseph encouraged me to go, saying it might be the chance we needed to clear the air somehow. We arrived to find my father grilling burgers with a tight jaw and forced smile that did not reach his eyes. Uncle Samuel was already there setting out plates, and he gave me a subtle nod of encouragement across the yard. Conversation stayed light at first, focusing on the weather and my company's latest expansion plans for the region. Then my father cleared his throat and brought up the topic we had all been avoiding since my return to town. He stated flatly that Joseph had no place in our family and that my choices were tearing us apart once again. My mother looked down at her plate, unable to meet anyone's gaze as the familiar tension filled the backyard air. I defended our relationship calmly, explaining how Joseph had stood by me through every challenge and success along the way. The argument escalated quickly, with raised voices and old accusations flying, until Uncle Samuel set his glass down firmly. He suggested we all take a breath before saying things we might regret later in the heat of the moment. My father ignored him and turned to me, demanding I choose the family or face permanent disownment again. The words stung deeply, echoing the pain from that rainy night 10 years earlier when I had been thrown out. Joseph placed a reassuring hand on my back and spoke softly about respect and the importance of unconditional love. The barbecue ended awkwardly, with everyone dispersing without resolution and the weight of unresolved issues hanging heavy. Later that evening, I sat on the porch of our rental, reflecting on how far I had come, yet how little had changed. Joseph joined me with 2 cups of coffee, and we watched the stars come out over the Kansas fields together. He reminded me that my success was not just about money, but about the person I had grown into despite everything. We talked about our shared dreams of maybe building a life here if the family could find a way to accept us. The following days brought more town buzz as my app helped several local businesses increase their profits significantly. People stopped me on the street to thank me, and some even asked about Joseph, showing genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Yet at home, the family situation remained strained, with my father refusing to speak to me directly anymore. My mother sent secret texts asking me to be patient and saying she was working on him in her own quiet way. Uncle Samuel invited us over for dinner at his place on the edge of town, where the atmosphere felt noticeably lighter. He cooked a simple meal and listened as we shared stories from our years in Chicago and the early struggles. His eyes held a depth of understanding that made me wonder what experiences he had kept hidden all these years. He mentioned casually how life in a small town could be hard for anyone who did not fit the expected mold. The comment lingered in my mind long after we left his house that night, leaving me with more questions than answers. As the town festival planning committee asked me to speak again at the main event, I felt the pressure building once more. Joseph and I discussed whether to attend together openly or keep things low-key to avoid another public scene. We chose honesty, deciding that hiding would only give power to the very fears we had overcome long ago. The week before the big day, my father called the house and left a message warning me not to bring Joseph. The ultimatum felt like a final test of my resolve, and I spent hours pacing the living room in deep thought. Joseph suggested we focus on the positive difference we were making in the community and let the rest unfold naturally. His calm strength helped steady my nerves as we prepared our outfits and practiced the speech I would deliver. Meanwhile, the local newspaper published a feature on my journey from runaway teen to successful entrepreneur, which stirred more talk. Some articles hinted at my personal life, causing the gossip to spread like wildfire through the small-town cafes. My mother visited our rental one afternoon with tears in her eyes, saying she wanted to meet Joseph properly. She hugged him warmly and apologized for the years of silence that had kept us all apart in painful ways. Her gesture gave me hope that change was possible, even if my father still clung tightly to his rigid views. Uncle Samuel stopped by later that same day with a handmade wooden plaque for my office as a welcome home gift. He stayed for coffee and shared a few stories from our childhood that made me laugh despite the current tension. His presence felt like a quiet anchor in the storm of family drama that threatened to pull everything under. As the festival drew closer, the excitement in Willow Creek grew with banners and posters featuring my name prominently. I received calls from old classmates who wanted to reconnect and hear about my life away from the town. Some were supportive of my relationship with Joseph, while others stayed neutral, not wanting to pick sides openly. The night before the event, Joseph and I lay awake talking about what we would do if things went badly again. We agreed that no matter the outcome, our bond was strong enough to weather any storm that came our way. Morning light brought a sense of calm determination as we headed to the town square for the main celebration. The crowd was larger than expected, with people from neighboring towns arriving to see the local success story up close. My father was there in the front row again, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable from a distance. As I stepped onto the stage with Joseph beside me, the murmurs grew louder and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. I began my speech focusing on community and second chances, hoping the words would reach even the hardest hearts present. The applause started strong, but my father's voice cut through it like a knife as he stood up, shouting accusations loudly. He demanded the microphone and declared that my lifestyle was a disgrace that the town should not celebrate at all. The crowd shifted uncomfortably as his words echoed across the square, turning the festive mood into one of shock. Joseph stood tall beside me, refusing to back down, even as some people began to murmur in agreement with my father. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that love and success could coexist without harming anyone in the community. But the confrontation escalated when my father stepped closer to the stage and pointed directly at Joseph with anger. He accused us both of corrupting the values that had held the town together for generations past and present. Several older residents nodded while younger ones looked confused or supportive, creating a visible divide in the audience. Security moved in to prevent any physical escalation, but the damage was already done as whispers spread rapidly. My mother covered her face in embarrassment, while Uncle Samuel watched the scene with a growing intensity in his eyes. The festival organizers tried to regain control, but the damage to the event's spirit felt irreversible in that moment. I stepped down from the stage with Joseph, feeling the weight of public judgment heavier than ever before. We walked through the crowd as some people avoided eye contact and others offered quiet words of encouragement. Back at the rental house, we sat in silence, processing the public humiliation that had just unfolded so dramatically. Joseph suggested we pack and leave town if the hostility continued, but I felt torn about running away again. That evening, my mother called sobbing, saying my father had stormed home and locked himself in his study angrily. She begged me to give him time, insisting that deep down he still loved me despite his harsh words today. The phone call left me emotionally drained, yet strangely hopeful that cracks in the family wall might finally appear. Uncle Samuel texted later asking if we were okay and offering to meet for breakfast the next morning privately. We agreed and arrived at the local diner to find him already seated with a serious but kind expression waiting. He ordered coffee for all of us and began by saying he had watched the festival scene with a heavy heart. His voice grew firmer as he described how the town's reaction mirrored the same fears he had carried silently for decades. I listened intently, sensing this was the moment when everything we had built might either crumble or strengthen forever. The conversation deepened as Uncle Samuel shared fragments of his own past that he had never revealed to anyone before. He spoke of a close friend from his youth whose love had been forced into secrecy by the same small-town pressures. The story resonated deeply with me and Joseph as we realized we were not alone in this struggle after all. My father burst into the diner unexpectedly, his face flushed as he demanded to know what we were discussing. Uncle Samuel stood up slowly and faced his brother with a calm authority I had never seen in him before. He told my father that enough was enough and that the family had suffered long enough from outdated thinking. The two brothers stared at each other across the table as years of unspoken tensions finally rose to the surface. My father argued back, insisting that tradition and faith demanded certain standards that could not be compromised ever. Uncle Samuel countered that true family meant accepting each other as we were, not as we wished others to be. The diner fell quiet around us as customers pretended not to listen, but the air crackled with raw emotion. Joseph and I sat frozen, watching the confrontation between the two men who represented my past and possible future. My mother arrived moments later, having been called by Uncle Samuel, and she stood beside him in quiet support. Her presence added another layer to the unfolding drama as she finally voiced her own long-held feelings openly. The climax of the family conflict reached its peak right there in the small diner, with everyone watching intently. My father turned to leave, but paused at the door, his shoulders slumping under the weight of the moment. Uncle Samuel's words had struck a chord that no one, including me, had expected in the heat of the argument. As the door closed behind my father, the four of us sat in stunned silence, processing what had just transpired. The town outside continued its daily rhythm, but inside that diner something fundamental had shifted forever in our lives. I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty, wondering if this public stand would lead to healing or deeper rifts. Joseph placed his hand over mine, offering silent reassurance that we would face whatever came next together as always. Uncle Samuel sighed deeply and suggested we give my father space while focusing on the positive steps already taken. My mother nodded, agreeing that change took time, but that love within the family could eventually bridge any gap. The conversation turned to practical matters like how my company could continue supporting local initiatives regardless of family drama. We left the diner with a fragile sense of unity that felt both new and long overdue after so many years. The following week brought a quiet invitation from my father to meet at the family house for a private talk. I arrived alone at first, with Joseph waiting nearby in case the conversation turned difficult once more. My father sat on the porch looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him appear before. He struggled to find the right words, but finally admitted that Uncle Samuel's stand had forced him to reflect deeply. The conversation was awkward and halting, but he acknowledged the pain his past actions had caused me as a teen. He did not fully accept my relationship with Joseph yet, but he agreed to stop the public opposition for now. My mother joined us on the porch, and the three of us shared a tentative moment of understanding in the sunlight. Uncle Samuel arrived later, carrying a photo album from our childhood, filled with memories, both happy and painful. He pointed out pictures of us as boys, reminding everyone that family bonds had always been stronger than differences. His quiet courage had sparked the beginning of healing, and I felt grateful for the relative who had chosen to protect me. Joseph joined the gathering after a while, and to my surprise, my father shook his hand without a harsh word. The gesture was small, but it carried the weight of years of built-up resentment finally starting to ease. We spent the afternoon talking about the future and how my company could bring more jobs to Willow Creek. The town buzz continued, but now it included stories of family reconciliation that inspired others facing similar struggles. Joseph and I decided to stay in town permanently, opening a community innovation hub that welcomed everyone openly. My father attended the opening ceremony, standing quietly in the back, but clapping when the ribbon was cut. Uncle Samuel stood proudly beside me throughout the event, his presence a constant reminder of the power of quiet support. My mother hugged Joseph warmly and whispered that she was proud to call him part of the family now. The healing was not instant or complete, but it felt genuine and full of possibility for all of us involved. Over the months that followed, small changes appeared, like shared meals and invitations to family events without conditions. I often reflected on that barn night long ago and how it had led to this unexpected chapter of growth. The journey had been painful, yet it taught me that courage from within the family could rewrite old narratives. Joseph and I built a home on the edge of town where the wheat fields stretched endlessly under open skies. We planted a garden together, symbolizing the new roots we were putting down despite the earlier rejection. Uncle Samuel visited often, sharing wisdom and laughter that strengthened the bonds we had fought so hard to preserve. My father joined us for holidays, and though conversations remained careful, they were no longer filled with anger. The town of Willow Creek gradually embraced the changes, seeing how success and love could coexist peacefully. Life settled into a rhythm of work, community, and family that felt both familiar and refreshingly new. Looking back, I realized that the twist of Uncle Samuel's protection had turned pain into unexpected healing for everyone. The experience showed that even the deepest wounds could begin to mend when someone chose to stand up bravely. Our story became a quiet example in the community of how acceptance could grow from the most unlikely places. As the seasons changed in Kansas, I felt grateful for the journey that had brought us full circle at last. True family is not defined by perfection, but by the willingness to choose love even when it challenges tradition. Is it ever too late for a family to choose acceptance over rejection when love is on the line?